Batra Daf Yod Bet, 14 lines down. Amar Rav Anan, Amar Shemuel, Mivot, Mifulashim, Leshut Rabim. If the alleyways of a city are open to public, and then the people of the alley want to block it off with a wall or a door, the public can stop them because it was already considered established. But people originally they thought maybe that halacha only applies within the four amot directly in front of the entrance of the alleyway. Because there's a halacha that the four amot into a Reshut Rabim is considered Reshut Rabim. Belohi. But that's not what we're talking about over here. Those four amot that automatically considered part of Reshut Rabim is referred to Safek Tum'ah if we're not sure Tum'ah is that the Safek is there as well. But over here, what do you mean that it's considered Reshut Rabim by the Mavoi? Over here, with the alleyway, we're talking about the Reshut Rabim has access even further than the Fuamot because if there's a lot of traffic and foot traffic in the area, sometimes they get pushed into the alleyway, and therefore you cannot take away that privilege of the public. The next part of the Mishnah said, our Mishnah says that you can't force someone to split a field unless it's enough for 9 kav for each. And the second, Rabbi Das said 9.5 each. Between them is not an actual disagreement. Each opinion was going according to their own place based off the quality of the soil. Bibavel Mai, what's halacha in Bavel? What's considered the smallest field? Mar Yosef, Beradu Yoma. Each partner must receive an area that takes a day to plow. All right, that's enough to split. So my Berad Yoma, what does that mean? Day to plow. Iyom Abzar is referring to the day in the planting season, which is already been plowed already to prepare for planting. The problem with that is you don't need 2 full days to plow. So how do you cut that in half for 1 day each? But it's referring to the plowing season. It won't take a full day to plow it during the planting season. So then it's going to be way much less. So how do you split this day? How do you split this field evenly in order to have each guy having 1 day of plowing? That's considered the minimal field. What were you referring to that it takes a day to plow during the first plowing season? The Kari Vitani, and then he's talking about cases where they don't just plow once during the planting seasons, but they plow multiple times, and that's why you're able to split it. Different answer. Yomad Dezara is referring to a day of planting season. Bahadur is referring to a place with a lot of hills. That takes longer, and therefore you're able to split it in 2 separate days. Davla, when dividing a place like a water hole. Each partner must receive amount of that hole that they're able to have enough to draw water for a day. Pardesa regarding the vineyard, that each partner must get at least 3 kabin, so it must be 6 total. Says, I'm selling you a portion of the vineyard without saying how big it is. Says it has to be at least 3 kav. That's considered the minimum, just like his father. The Shmuel's follows halacha of 3 kabin. It's like prophecy because we don't have any source from the Torah to teach you, therefore you must know it because of prophecy. So Bavel for a vineyard. Each partner must get an area of 3 rows, with each row having 12 vines, so 36 vines. So each partner has enough to work on for a full day. That's considered the minimum. Now, we mentioned earlier prophecy. Now we're going to get sidetracked. When the Mikdash was destroyed, the power of prophecy was taken from the Nevi'im and given to Hachamim. The Gemara says, "Atu Hacham lo v'Nevi'im." So the Nevi'im weren't Hachamim either. So El Kamar no. Even though with the Nevi'im's, the prophets lost their prophecy after the Mikdash. Mina Hachamim lo nitla. The Hachamim did not lose their prophecy. Hacham is greater than a Navi because the pasuk says, "Shene'emar v'Navi levav chochma." A Navi has a heart of wisdom. So, like, what gets from what? What's compared to what? The smaller thing is attached to the bigger thing. So the Navi has wisdom, means that the wisdom is greater, so a Hacham is bigger than a Navi. You should know. I can prove to you that Hachamim have prophecy, because sometimes one Tamid Hacham will say something, and then someone else will say the same exact thing in a different person's name. So we see that they had the same prophecy, quote unquote, without knowing each other. What's the problem? Maybe it's not prophecy, but rather they have the same mazal, they have the same constellations, and therefore they were able to be zochet to have the same mindset. That's not prophecy. Maybe you can prove it differently. They got Milta because one time in Hachama say something, and then it'll be quoted Mashmid Rabbi Akiva by Yosef Kabaten in the name of Rabbi Akiva Yosef, even though they never knew each other. Rabbi Akiva by Yosef was very smart. So therefore, the fact that you're able to be zochet to think like him, maybe it's considered like neviut. No. Maybe that matter had the same mindset and smart intellectuals as Rabbi Akiva. Therefore, it's not the prophecy. Maybe you should know like this. Because sometimes a Chacham will say something, and they'll teach you that this hinting was from a Chacham Moshe Sinai, and that must be like prophecy. The Gemara says no, but maybe it happened like a blind guy walking through a field or a skylight, like the guy is by luck. We say, we were trying to say the fact that he maybe found it by luck, therefore it's not considered prophecy. The Gemara said back, no, but the Chacham didn't say it by mistake. He said it with a reason, and still he was like he was able to say something like Moshe Sinai, and therefore that's considered like semi-prophecy. The power of prophecy was taken from the Nedim and given to insane people and to children. The Shatimai was the story of a shoteh that got an insane person that got prophecy. He was standing in the marketplace in Mahuz. He heard a Majnun person saying, the head of the yeshiva is now being appointed in Mechasya, Tavyome Hatim, and he signed his name as Tavyome. Amar, now more about Rashi said that. Man Hatim Tavyome B'Raman, Ana. Who signed his name like that? I do. Therefore, now it must be time for me to try to make myself the head of the yeshiva. Kamata, he went there. When he got there, the people already voted to make Rav Acha as the head of the yeshiva. Given the Shemed, once they heard that Rashi was coming, they sent a pair of rabbis to talk to him to ask his permission to make Rav Acha the rabbi. But Rav Ashi held them back, asked them to stay a couple minutes. This is another pair of rabbis. He could then hold back these pairs of rabbis until he had 10. Once he had 10, given them asra, he started making a shi'or, and when he made a shi'or, decided to make him the Rosh Yeshiva. Why did he have to wait for 10? Because you don't start a shi'or with less than 10 people in order to be like the Rosh Yeshiva. So therefore he became Rosh Yeshiva because he heard of this prophecy by the shoteh, by the insane person. Now Rav Acha was supposed to be it. He said of himself, anybody who had a bad thing happen to him, his good fortune won't come right away. Anybody who got good will not have, bad won't follow so easily. So meaning he's saying to himself that once he had the opportunity and it didn't happen, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Now, what's the story of a child? Tinoket Mahi. One time the young daughter of Chisda, was sitting on her father's lap. Rava and Rabbi Chama were sitting in front of him. Amar Le, Rav Chisda told his daughter the joke. Man mina u'ba'it, who do you want to marry? Rava or Rabbi Chama? Amar Le Trivau. She told her father, both of them. Amar Rava said, Anna Batra, I want to marry her last. That's exactly what happened. Rav Chisda's daughter married Rabbi Chama. He died, and then Rava married her. Before a person eats and drinks, he has like two hearts. He's undecidable. After he drinks and eats, he's more decisive. Also regarding nevuv lechot, referring to hollow boards. So we see the word navuv means hollow or empty. Whoever drinks wine regularly, even if his heart is closed like a betula, wine will open it up. Now we're going back to our fields. So obviously, when a person is splitting a Yerusha with his father, so there's two sons, and there's 3 fields. So the Bechor gets 2, and the other son gets 1. So the Bechor picks his extra slot, and then he gets a regular slot as a son. He gets double portion, 1 for being Bechor, 1 for being regular son. So the Bechor portion and the regular portion, if they have 2 fields next to each other, he should get those 2 because it makes sense that he should have the two fields attached, like we always say. What's the halacha regarding a brother-in-law married his ex-sister-in-law when his brother died without children, and then the father dies? Does he get? We know that he gets the brother's portion. The question is, does he get the border as well, like a Yerusha? He seems that thing. He should get back-to-back fields. My time why? Bechor Krei Rachman, the Torah calls him like a firstborn. Rav Amar says no. Amar Krav Bechor, the firstborn. He gets a firstborn that he gets double portion, but he's not like a firstborn that he can demand that he gets the neighboring fields. We're talking about a certain person who bought land on the border of his father's property. When his father passed away, now they're splitting the fields. Please give me the field that's next to the field that I already bought. This is a classic case of midat sedom, that one guy gains, one guy doesn't lose, and therefore you should give him the benefit of having neighboring fields. Not for sure. The brothers can tell him, that field that you want is very valuable. It's like a property of Bar Milyon, which is like a very valuable, high quality land. Therefore, we are losing out. Unless you want to pay more for it, you can pay more for it. But it's not just so simple. Oh, give it to me, please. Today, if two brothers inherit a field that has two sets of land with two fields with two rivers passing through, can you also demand one that's next to you? Yes, you can. Split it, give it next door. Akira says, same question. He doesn't want to split the field down the middle and only get one river if he can have both rivers, the other brothers. He could say, no. What if my river dries out and I already gave you, now you want that field, now I don't have a river anymore, therefore I want to split it down the middle, let's say lengthwise, so I have access to two rivers, and therefore you can't force him. The Chazal said that you cannot force him. If there's two lands with one river, so now you can't claim anymore that you want two rivers. Can you force him or not? Amar Rebbe says that you can force him because in Yasadom, when this guy gains, this guy doesn't lose. 1 second. The other brother can say, no, the reason why I want you to buy, the non-Bechor brother can say, no, I don't want you to get this field, because if you are one on my right and one on my left, and I take the one in between, then what will happen is you'll have to hire more workers and it'll help me. And therefore, I do have a loss. However, we don't hold like that. That you can force him to take it because that's not considered a gain. That's not considered a loss if you don't do it. It's true, he'd have to hire more sharecroppers, but that's not considered in the calculation of loss or not. So yes, if he were to be on both sides of you and you're in the middle, he'd have to hire more workers. But that's not fair to him that he'd have to hire more. So therefore, you can force him to get the neighboring fields. You move out to the side, and because of midat sedom. Now, had gisa nagra, had gisa nahara. There's a picture in Rashi. There's a river on one side. The river's on the north side, and there's a irrigation canal on the left side, on the west side. So now, if you split it north to south, then the guy on the left side will now have part of the river and the entire canal. If you split it west to east, cut it in half, then one guy will get the most of the river and will get the whole river and half of the canal, and the guy in the bottom will only get part of the canal. So you can't split it up and down anymore. So what do? Pagin la bekanazol, we have to divide it in corners, which means you divide it into 8 and you rotate who gets what. In Rashi, you'll see a picture. You have reshin, the alternate who gets which portion. You divide it like a pizza pie, and they rotate, and each other you alternate between who gets the next slice. Reuven, Shimon, each they switch off, so they each get enough of the river and each get a good portion of the canal as well. Below the clean, our Mishnah said you don't divide the mansion. This is big enough. Let's say the property is not large for each to return to get a proper share. What's the halacha? I know I can't force you to divide it, but can I force you to buy me out? The one partner can say, you can force the guy, say, either buy me out or I buy you out. Let Dina the good. You can't force someone else to buy him out. If he doesn't want to buy him out, he doesn't buy him out. According to you, who said that you can't force the other guy to buy you out. If that's the case, that's the father that passed away left an inheritance of something that is unable to be split, like a slave or a non-kosher animal. You can't cut the slave in half, and you can't slaughter the animal because you can't eat it. How do you split that? He says, the slave or the animal worked for him, the regular son 1 day, and the Bahar 2 days. You divide it 1-to-2 ratio. Instead of physically, you divide it in usage. A question. A person who has a half a slave and a half an Eved. You had two partners, one partner freedom. What happens? You split off each day. 1 day he works for the master, the other day he's free. Bet no. You help let the master, letting the master get him every other day. And you don't solve his own problem. He can't marry anybody. He can't marry a female slave. He's half free, and therefore he's half Jewish. He can't marry a free woman because he's half a slave. Yibatel, you not marry anybody. Oh, but the world was created for having children. The Pasuk says, Hashem did not create the world to be empty. Ella, rather, forced the master to free him. The slave must write an IOU note for the master to pay for his value. But he'll ends up agreeing with Bet Shemai. So the only reason why we force the guy to work, to be freed rather, is because he has to get married. But if it wasn't for that, you can't force the guy to buy anybody out. That's a question against Rabbi Yehuda, where it says, no, Shani Hacha, the Agud Ika, Agud Leka. Over there isn't any buyouts, meaning the slave is the only one who's being bought out on his end. But the free part, in the other case, I buy you, you buy me. Over here, the Eved can't resell himself. So therefore, there's only a buyout on his end to be freed, but he doesn't have an option to sell himself. And therefore, in that case, Rabbi agrees that you can't force anything. What's my favorite?